Welcome back to The Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced. The best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Now let's go into the room at a previous Thermostat Cultures live event that I host and listen to my interview with former number one pick in the NBA draft, Ohio State basketball legend, and more importantly, friend and courageous and positive human, Greg Oden.
Things don't always work out the way that we hoped they would. And sometimes the thermostat gets a little bit out of whack. And sometimes then we have to go, we can either stay going down that path or we can begin to calibrate it to say, what is it that I want to be different? And that is what is so compelling to me about Greg Oden. You may know, if you're a sports fan, and especially around Ohio, you know the name Greg Oden. He is one of only 73 humans in all of the world, in the existence of the world. There are only 73 people who have ever experienced what it's like to be drafted number one in the NBA. Of all the professional basketball teams, there's only 73 humans in the world ever that have ever had the experience of when the first team has the first pick each year, that they're able to pick all the humans. They got anybody they can pick from. And yet they go, I want you. And his life experience up until that point, at the age of 19, this guy was successful everywhere he went, and he worked really hard to get there. Two-time Gatorade Player of the Year, right in the country in high school. Gatorade does the award, National High School Basketball Player in the World. The only other two-time Gatorade National Player of the Year award winner is LeBron James. And this guy. Then he comes to Ohio State, and in his freshman year, he and the team lead them to the national championship game that nobody thought we would go to, and damn near won a national championship as a freshman. Then he's selected number one by the Portland Trail Blazers. Number two pick was Kevin Durant. Tells you something. And the Portland Trail Blazers, and we're going to get into this story, but at the age of 19, he's at the pinnacle of his career. And then some things with his body that were out of his control began to break down in ways that he was left to figure out, how do I calibrate my life and what this now change means. His story of success is really inspiring. But to me, and I've told him this from day one, now that we've been lucky to become friends and I've been lucky to coach him and help him think about his vision for life and where he's going, now to be able to look at him and to say, I told him this from day one, his story is more compelling about what's next than what's came before. And so it's with that, I'm excited to bring up a friend and former number one NBA draft pick, Greg Oden. Gio!
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So I'm going to crawl up here, too, like Jessica.
I'm going to sit up a little straighter here. This is good. So, Gio, tell me Greg Oden as a child. I'm guessing a giant child, but tell us about you, like childhood in Greg Oden's life.
Normal. Had a younger brother. Beat him up all the time. We fought all the time. Was born in Buffalo, New York. all my family's there. Third grade comes around. Mom wakes me and my brother up in the middle of the night, and we hop on a Greyhound. And next thing I know, I'm in Terre Haute, Indiana, Larry Bird country. It was eye-opening, different, but it was fun, you know, getting to know that part of the family that I haven't had a chance to spend a lot of time with, but me and my brother kind of adapted quickly. I did more than him. I feel like I'm a Midwest guy, that's why I live here now. My brother had a little tougher time, but through all that, you know, my mom's working 2 jobs. She's just trying to provide for us in a new state. But it wasn't bad. I grew up in the Boys and Girls Clubs, you know, that's all I did. I would just go there every day. That was our after school thing. I was on the court, and you know, when you start doing something every day, you kind of get good at it. I guess that's how I started playing basketball a little bit.
And when was it that you made that connection in your own mind, or at least you saw, like, I'm pretty good at this?
Well, I started playing in the 4th grade, didn't get good till the 7th grade. So it's funny, my first basket when I started playing basketball was for the other team. So I was so terrible, I never got the ball, and I guess they pressed one day, and that's why I was open, because they knew they was going to steal it from me. So literally I get it, and I just shoot it, but you know, they were just getting it to me to get it down the court, because I was the only one open. But I definitely enjoy that story. I remember running down celebrating, it was like, what the, you know?
What are some, you then, from that moment, I think you dunked for the first time in 7th grade, is that right?
Yeah, just practicing.
So did I, by the way.
I mean, you gotta think about this. So 5th grade, at the end of 5th grade, I was 6 feet tall, because I remember my teacher was 5'11". 6th grade, I was 6'6". 7th grade, I was 6'7". And they were like, dude, like, you should try to dunk the ball. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, oh yeah, I should. Huh, I'm pretty tall, right? You know? And I remember when I first dunked, and then I first dunked in the game, like, now that I think about it, it was like something that just went off in my head. And it was like, dude, this is fun. It embarrasses the other person. Just keep on doing this over and over again. You know, something might come of it.
So you then, this meteoric rise from that point, where in high school you started getting all the accolades, and again, as I said earlier, the only other 2-time Gatorade National Player of the Year in high school was LeBron James. So you start getting all this. What are some of the things that you're most proud of in your climb of success?
Most proud of, I mean, it had to be the Gatorade Player of the Year. So I remember with that, you get to go to the ESPYs, and the actual National Gatorade Player of the Year gets to be shown on TV. And I remember the first year I went as a junior, I didn't win, but to have that experience. And I remember junior in high school, I'm in shorts and like a tear-off shirt and like one of those string backpacks. And I remember Baron Davis talking to me. He was like, yeah, Gio, you know, take my limo. And I'm like, I'm a junior, first time in LA. I get in the limo, I'm like, I don't know where the hell I'm going. Like, I just got out. I was like, you go ahead. But now when I think about it, I wish I was just like, take me somewhere. You know? I don't know. So Gatorade Player of the Year, Naismith Player of the Year, Parade All-American as a junior and senior, 3 state championships, a whole bunch of wins in AAU, national championships. I guess
you've got a long list of successes, and so all of a sudden you get to Ohio State, you're a freshman, and that team then goes on this magical run to the Final Four, and then ultimately to the national championship game. You end up losing to Florida, who was a back-to-back national champion. It's an amazing Florida team, but you all get there, and you were a monster in that game, by the way.
Right.
But you get to that point. And what was it about that team? When you think about the culture of that team, when you think about you as a freshman, but then why that magical run that most people didn't predict, what happened on that team?
So I'll start with just the characters with that team. We'll go Mike Conley, who was just so unselfish and a 13-year pro in the NBA now, playing for the Utah Jazz. You know, everybody says it was me, but now when you look back at it, it was definitely him. He made me look good. You got Daquan Cook, who at that time was one of the greatest scorers that we had seen in the Midwest. We had Ron Lewis, who infamously hit that shot against Xavier to take us to the next round. He was the star on that team, and he kind of put it on himself to kind of take a back seat and let himself show throughout the year and kind of let me shine a little bit. You had Jamar Butler, who was the workhorse of that team. Like, he was the fight. He was the starting point guard. He had to take a seat to Mike Conley, but he was still the hardest worker, the best defender on that team. And we had Ivan Harris, who was the McDonald's All-American on that team before me and Mike came. But he was the fun of that team. Like, he was the one that glued everybody together. You know, he was a senior, but everybody knew Ivan. He was the jokester. Everybody can get along, have a conversation with him. But from the top, we had Coach Mata, who was the reason why we came to Ohio State. I mean, his energy, just when he talked to you, he could connect with you. And for me, just having that fun, like a story that I would tell about Coach Mata, before the national championship game, we're all nervous, you know, we're like, God, I mean, we're here, you know, and we're like, okay, what's this speech going to be? It's going to be one of these rah-rah, turns off the lights, turns on the TV. Have you all seen Wedding Crashers? So literally the scene at the end with Will Ferrell, it was like, what the do you want? I almost nunchucked you, you don't even know it. That was his speech. He turns it off and goes, all right, fellas, go out and play. So you think about that, like, we were all so uptight. We're so nervous about the national championship. Literally, that's what we watched, and we were like, oh, okay, let's go.
That was an interesting approach. I may need to talk to Coach Mata. That was interesting.
It was. I mean, we lost, so I don't know if it was.
Yeah, we might
think about it.
Great in theory. So, again, about that team, when we've talked about this and when I hear you talk about that team, the number of people that also, there was talent on that team, yes, a lot of talent. But people took on different roles, were willing to take a back seat, were willing to say, I will play a different role. And together then, the culture that was created was this, no, there is a goal that's bigger than just us winning awards. Yeah. Is that accurate?
It is. And I don't think we even did it with the national championship in mind. We kind of did it because we wanted to play together. We wanted to be the best team that we could be. And we just knew, like, we were friends. I mean, Ivan and myself, you know, I tried to get along with everybody on that team. It doesn't usually happen. But somehow, you know, we all built a relationship, and towards the end of the season, you know, it was like we wanted to do this for each other. What was best for that team, we was all willing to do.
So, at 19 years old, your freshman year, you almost win the national championship, and the very next day, then the NBA draft talks starts happening, and everybody's talking about, okay, well then who's going to be picked? All of a sudden, you're projected to go number one, and you get to draft day in New York City, and all of a sudden, as 19 years old, they call your name for the Portland Trail Blazers with the number one pick Greg Oden, and what happens?
It was a whirlwind. So you think about this, the first thing is you're walking up them steps, and I'm in my head like, don't trip. That's the number one thing, don't trip. And it started, I tried to please everybody, because I've told him this story, and I feel so bad for my brother. So I have my whole family at this table. So they're talking about, you know, hug person to the left of you, person to the right of you. So of course that's my mom and dad. So I'm like, okay, I'm the first one going up. I don't want to, you know, mess up anything. That's what they tell me, that's what I'm do. And now when I think about it, everybody else that went up after me hugged everybody around the table. You know, I didn't go hug my grandmother. I didn't go hug my brother. I only hugged my mom and my dad. And when I watched that, I feel so bad. So I'm trying to please everybody from the start. And then I go up there. It was David Stern at the time. Shook his hand, went right back to do interviews. I was the first one to do the interview, and I was the last one to leave doing the last interview. And as soon as I got done, they tell me, you have an hour to catch a plane. So I had my whole entire family there. I spent no time with my family the whole entire 3 weeks there. There was a party the day before the draft. I didn't get a chance to talk to my family. I didn't get a chance to just take a deep breath and just enjoy myself in New York, because I was doing all these recommendations, media engagements, media training, things for junior NBA, planting trees, meeting a whole bunch of people, and literally my whole entire family's there who I haven't seen in years, and I don't even get a chance to talk to them. And then, I remember seeing Joakim Noah, and I wanted to hate him so bad, but he's such a great dude. He was like, Gio, we about to enjoy New York. We're about to do all this with all these draftees. And no, an hour later, I was on a private plane, Paul Allen's plane, by the way, just so y'all know, on the way to Portland, Oregon. So I really had no time in New York to do anything, to even just have some time with my thoughts. That was my New York experience.
Yeah, so you're drafted and you have this whirlwind experience. Mm-hmm. You're ushered to a private plane, mm-hmm. because now you're going to Portland. Mm-hmm. And so saying goodbye to your family and to get on a plane, next thing you know, you're in the air, you're on your way to Portland. By the time you land the next day in Portland, they have a parade in the city of Portland ready for this man, because as the savior of the city, now Greg Oden has arrived, and you show up that next day to a literal parade to welcome you to Portland, and you're 19 years old, and what are you feeling?
I'm feeling, I wish I would have known. I would have wore something better. I had like jeans and a t-shirt. I was like, oh, this is a real parade. I don't even know what I was feeling. It was so much, just kind of just thrown at me in that moment. When I think about it, it was fun, but it was so much that I had no thoughts. I was just kind of like, I'm looking at everybody, but I'm just kind of blind. I don't even know how to process it. You got to think 2 months ago, I was just going to class, and enjoying myself. I mean, freaking college, I went to a party as Urkel. It was like, this was not too long ago. And now I'm looking
Urkel,
at
by the way. You'd be a great Urkel.
I mean, it was easy. None of my clothes fit anyway. So. But you think about that, and then I'm looking up, and it's a whole city in downtown Portland, and they're looking at me like, dude, you're going to bring this championship. You're going to change our city. And what do you say at 19 when you don't even know how to handle a checkbook or most of the normal things at that age?
And so there you are, 19 years old. You're the savior of the city. I still remember a buddy of mine that lives in Portland calling me up at the time and knowing that I was a Buckeye fan and saying, "We got Greg Oden. We're gonna do this for the next decade." I mean, the pressure and the expectations of you and on the city, and then it was 40 some days. Mm-hmm. Of the day you land and you have a parade, the city has a parade for you, and 40 some days later you go into what you think at the time is a minor surgery on your knee, to go in and do a scope and clean out his knee and take care of him preventatively. And while you're under, you tell me, you confirm the story, while you're under, they notice some other things in your knee and make some decisions on your behalf to do a microfracture surgery that then is not just a scope, is now you're done for the year. And so you come to, out of surgery that you think is routine, and all of a sudden, what?
I mean, you gotta think I'm #1 draft pick. I'm ready to dominate like all of them before me, the Dwight Howards, the LeBrons, everybody. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna be my year. And I wake up to, no, you're sitting out for the whole entire year. So, I mean, not too long ago, we just had this parade. I'm supposed to save this city. I'm supposed to do all this. I had all these expectations for myself. And even I felt it from, the fans. And, what do you do now? Now they're telling me I have to lay on the bed for 8 weeks on the time in a machine just moving my leg. Like literally bedridden, 8 hours out the day for 8 weeks from the microfracture, you're in this machine just moving your legs. And I'm 19, I didn't get that much older. How do you handle all that pressure? And for me, what I do, I put so much pressure on myself. I was expected to do this thing because this is all I've done from all my accolades in high school. You know, when I'm out there on the basketball court, I'm just dominating, I'm winning, I'm making it to national championships. We're getting state championships, and all of a sudden for that to be taken away from me, and the first time I'm actually not playing basketball since the 4th grade for a period of time as well. I mean, it was hard to grasp, and actually I didn't know how to handle it. So.
And all of a sudden then, when everything felt so much in your control of how hard you worked and how you practiced and how you prepared and how you played, all of that was within your control, now all of a sudden with all these things outside of your control, of things happening to your body, and then this expectations of what do I do now, which then led into how many surgeries after that?
How
many total surgeries?
1 microfracture, broken kneecap, microfracture. And before that, I had a fractured hip, I had a wrist and a wrist. So, I mean, about 8 surgeries altogether. But yeah, I think that's a span of, I was in Portland 5 years. So probably a span of 3 years, I had 4 knee surgeries.
And as you are trying to make sense of this emotionally, you're trying to rehab back and stay resilient in the fact that try to live up to this pressure that you were feeling. How did you begin to cope with that?
So here goes the real. I didn't know how to cope with it, you know. All I knew was that I was 19, 20. I had a lot of money. I had access to a lot of things. You don't know what it's like to be the #1 celebrity in the country at 19 years old, and then you're in a small city as Portland, Oregon, and you're just trying to go to a club with your teammates, but the whole entire city knows who you are and know how old you are. So now I wasn't going to the clubs. I wasn't out. I was at home. My uncle can go get me a bottle of booze. You know, I can have some weed. I wasn't getting drug tested because I wasn't playing. And then I have all these pills. I mean, it came to a point where, you know, this is what it took for me to go to sleep. I would have to be drunk. I would take 2 Vicodin, 2 Percocet, 2 Advil PMs, 2 Benadryl, and that was just to go to sleep for like 4 hours every night. And when I look at it, and it was just the numb. I mean, I was going through that pain, so I was taking those pain pills. I was numbing my body, but then I also didn't know how to handle this situation. I was never put in this situation before. I was always playing, I was always winning. But now I'm dealing with this loss, and I didn't know how to handle my thoughts, so I was just numbing my mind up as well. You know, I felt like I never had to deal with anything at that point. I mean, it even got to the point where, you know, I was trying to lose weight because I wasn't playing, I was still injured. So I became bulimic for at least 8 months. You know, I can say it was the alcohol messing with my stomach, so everything I ate, you know, my stomach wasn't feeling it, or I wanted to throw up, or I just got so used to it that it was like, well, I can cut weight if I eat and just throw it up anyway. So, I mean, I was dealing with a lot. And then I felt like there was nobody I could talk to. My rookie year, they had a team therapist, but because they wanted to keep so much eyes on me because I wasn't playing, you know, the GM would tell me stuff and I would feel like he was watching me. So now I wasn't trusting the team therapist. So now I had nobody to talk to. And when I first came out to Portland, there was a guy that was going to move out there with me, one of my old AAU coaches. But they told me like 2 days before we was going to move to Portland. So I cut that off. And now one of my best friends is moving in with me. You know, he's 19 years old as well. He hadn't dropped out of college. And so we both don't know what's going on. And so all these decisions that was made, I mean, I didn't understand what I was doing. I just did it what I thought, you know. I know you talked about the reactionary, you know. I was 19, 20, you know. I had no idea, and I wasn't listening to people. I wasn't going to the therapist, so I was hiding everything, or at least I thought I was hiding everything.
Yeah, and it really started this pattern of, again, and this is where, as I've gotten to know you, this compelling nature of, I know all of us, I know you all at 19, I know I was ready to handle all that, right? I can't even imagine being 19 and being that, and then this pattern that began. So we talk about that being in reactionary mode, but this without any clarity on, okay, well, who am I and what is it I'm trying to be? The pattern started to be very reactionary, which I'm just coping with getting through the day. And so it was the booze, it was the drugs, it was and as we've talked about, really you went through a pattern of years where you're a 7-foot giant. Mm-hmm. Like whenever Greg and I are together, we go into anywhere, and you walk into a room and everywhere in the coffee shop or the restaurant or wherever you are, everybody stops and their head just turns and looks like, who is that, right? Mm-hmm. That you literally can't hide, and yet you went through this pattern of trying to hide. Mm-hmm. And then what? Then when did you hit the point where you said, all right, something's got to change?
It's funny because I did all this work after going through all that. I got cut from Portland. So I was at home for a whole year doing the same thing, but I was rehabbing. I finally got my body to where, you know, I could play again. And I actually signed with the Miami Heat, LeBron's last year there. And, you know, that team, we made it to the finals. We lost to the Spurs, but you got to think, for me, I'm in the NBA now. I've made it to the finals. I made it, you know, a couple of wins away from the top of basketball, like literally everything. I thought I was there. I was already ready. I was going to get my ring fitted for my middle finger just in case anybody said anything to me. You know, after that year, you know, you play into June, July if you go to the finals. And the season, you're trying to get started training camp September, October. So I was like, okay, I only got a month to kind of just relax. So think about that. 2 weeks, I am just partying, drinking with multiple women, and I had a girlfriend at the time. And I remember we was at my mom's house in Indianapolis, and I don't know if any of y'all had a Boilermaker before, but it's just a beer with alcohol in it. And I want to say I had like 10. But I'm just putting it in my mind frame. Through my head, throughout the years, I'm listening to nothing but negative stuff, negative rap music. I'm gonna do this, you know, disrespecting women. This is how I'm talking. This is in my head when I'm by myself, because when I was with the Heat, I didn't want to mess that up. I just kind of kept to myself. I didn't want to mess up anything they got on. They were a great team, 2 championships. If I just played a straight and narrow and keep to my own demons, you know, I won't mess it up on the court. And those 2 weeks went by when I'm just getting so messed up that me and her got in this argument. When I blacked out through the argument, I did what my mind went to, was the negative thing. And so I got arrested, domestic violence, at my mom's house, what makes it even worse. And when I was in that jail cell, just standing up, trying to stretch, and I knew that the TV that I could not see was ESPN. And I'm sitting in there, I'm in the cell by myself, and I'm standing there looking, and everybody's eyes would just look at me, which I knew it was on ESPN at that same moment that I was standing there. That's when I knew that I had hit rock bottom for me.
And so one of the things that we've talked about a lot is this idea of then shifting our mindset from that reactionary, what's out of my control, to what is within my control. Mm-hmm. and trying to then wake up every day and shift that thinking to, okay, well, what is the temperature that I want to set differently? And what is the new mindset of discovering who I already am, but who I want to be, and then what am I going to do about it? So what are you doing to shift that? And what's that journey of shifting of the mindset been like?
I believe in God. I was raised in church, but I'm not the biggest churchgoer. And one day I was having a tough day. I remember this day. I was sitting there. I was just crying. I was drinking. And I remember Coach Mata called me randomly. And he said, we had a long conversation, about 20 minutes. And he was like, Greg, just come to practice. And I didn't come the next day because I wanted to sober up. And I came, and then I came the next day. And next thing I know, I was literally going to every practice. And then that summer came around, and some guy reached out to me about the degree completion program at Ohio State. You know, I had nothing else going on, so I enrolled in that, and so now I'm taking classes. Then I went full-time, and then I was helping out the basketball team. So for me, it was kind of, when I got drafted, I got out of my path. All I knew was graduate high school, you go to college, you graduate college, you get a job, start a family. That was the lifeline I always knew. But in college, I went somewhere else. But when I got back in that line, it kind of it gave me a schedule for one. It kept me around basketball, which I loved, which was the thing that made me feel sane always. So giving me a schedule, going to school, gave me something to do. Just kind of gave me a purpose. And I'm the guy, like, if I need to do this, this, and this, I can do that. You know, when I have to decide what it is, you know, I struggle with that a little bit. So to have that schedule of classes and to be able to be around basketball, it was kind of something for me to look forward to, that I wasn't going down that negative path anymore.
So one of the things I've observed with you is this shift, though, in now visioning for what is the life that you want to have that's different. Mm-hmm. And starting to then articulate, well, what are the values that you want to now drive the rest of your life? And not where you've been out the rearview mirror, but where you are headed out the windshield. Mm-hmm. Say a little bit about the values of that shifting of the mindset from that reactionary to the proactive kind of thermostat mindset. What are those values now? Because I know we've talked about it. Those values that you're holding out in front of you for the life you want tomorrow.
So, I mean, for one, I want to thank this guy because he actually is life coaching me. You know, a lot of the things that, you know, we always know that we need to do, working with him, I'm actually doing them. So, you know, I have a family now. I've been married 2 years, and our daughter's 3. I have to own my past because one day, and probably sooner than later, I'm going to have this conversation with my daughter about what happened to me in a domestic violence situation. And I mean, I'm scared of it, but it's part of my life, and I did it, you know. The one thing I'm starting to do is own my past. And by owning my past, I feel comfortable with not making the same mistakes that I used to do. So now I think about what's best for my family first. You know, when something comes up or a bump in the road comes up, I'm not going to go back to hiding. I'm not going to go back to just getting drunk and, you know, isolating myself from the problem, numbing my pain. I'm going to deal with it head on. How am I going to make it positive? You know, instead of looking at everything in negative, how can I look at it and say, okay, well, I mean, this might hurt for a second, but this is going to be good for me in the long run. And I started looking at life like, how can I, because I'm always seen as the story you told, I can't hide. As much as I've tried my whole entire life, you know, when you see a 7-foot guy, everybody sees me, and I kind of don't know everybody else. So how can I make a positive and a light? Because when you see me, I don't want to come in just bringing negative energy. I'm too big for all that, you know. I fill up a room anyway, so I might as well make it a positive, put a smile on somebody's face. And when I started thinking like that, put my family first, bring positivity to everybody, my decisions when things come up, because they always do, have been better.
I want to pause here for a second, and I want to open it up to questions that you all might have for Greg. I think it's unbelievably courageous for you to be able to sit, as I've told you this before, but to sit and to be able to own your story and be able to look at people and say, this is what some of which has happened to me and some of which I have done to myself. Mm-hmm. But that I have the courage to say I want something different is amazing. And I think if that's not a lesson in our own leadership and thinking, I don't know what is, but also thinking about then the culture that ends up creating with the people around us is palpable.
So I kind of want to say this because I was thinking about, like, you all are in the business setting, and how would this story connect? By the time David Stern said my name, I was the business. Everything I put in my body, the amount of sleep that I didn't get, the terrible food that I ate, you know, the times that I came in hungover and I decided not to get up 5 more shots or 100 more shots, that was affecting my business. So, you know, I would just say that's how that kind of turned into that. But when I think about it that way, the decisions I made, not having, you know, a coach living with me, but having my friend who just wanted to go out, you know, and have fun as well. Not a guy that's going to be like, let's go to the gym again and get up these extra shots. You know, just my mindset at that time, you know, of, okay, even though I am hurt, why not pay attention to practice more? Why not learn a different skill? You know, those are business decisions that I did not make because I was the business, and I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as I was just having fun, or I didn't need to do that because I'm injured.
What questions would you have for Greg? Let's pepper him with a couple.
So I'm sure there are a lot of things that you would want to go back in time and tell your 19-year-old self. But thinking of all of those things that you wanted your 19-year-old self to know, what would be the most important thing if you could go back?
I kind of just said it. Looking at everything I did in my life, every action as a business decision, and I use LeBron as an example because we kind of look like each other, but I got a little bit more hair. And we played on the same team, but you know, you see all the stuff he does. He treats himself as a business. You know, he may have fun, but when he gets out there, he's a monster. From having his chef around him, having the trainer around him, having his guys around him who are going to help him with these big decisions everywhere he goes. You know, I would look back at myself and be like, you probably shouldn't have your friend come live out there all the way across the country. You know, have somebody who's a little bit mature, who's been through life, who's going to help you, you know, keep your head on the same track.
Well, and to be fair, you didn't have those people around you.
No.
I mean, you had some of those, and certainly coaches and people along the way. Mm-hmm. But even at the Trailblazers, like, you weren't surrounded with a support team and system to help you at 19 begin to navigate that. And any conversations that might have taken place at 19 years old, I think, were falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like anybody in my family has ever seen that amount of money. Portland, they would try to bring in vets, you know, to try to get to me. Yeah, they were cool and all, but at that point, you know, first off, I was the #1 draft pick, you know. I got all this money. I'm already on this path. There's nothing you could tell me. Is Brandon Roy, LaMarcus Aldridge, you know, they were drafted 1 year ahead of me. They were still figuring out their own lives, you know, and plus my injuries, I was away from the team. So even if they were there, the Juwan Howards, I didn't get a chance to spend that much time with them because I mean, I was away doing my own rehab thing, so I did not have, you know, that tight-knit people to kind of guide me at that young age.
Yeah, Patrick.
So, talking about, business, but, so going forward, in pro sports, it is a lot of money in business, and you're the investment, or number one draft choices are. Have they learned from this, and is anything different?
I think in pro sports, yeah, a lot of these kids now are way more equipped. Just 10, 15 years ago, these guys now, they have teams around them, I'm not saying they're all LeBron, but, they all come up with this information. I mean, I had cell phones, but I had a little block Nokia in high school. These guys, got iPhones, anything, they want to know, they can get to. And a lot of these coaches now kind of built these players up and kind of get that around them. Then when I was there, like I had Mike Conley Sr. who won gold medals, but he was a great mentor and father figure in my life, but he wasn't my father. I still had to go home to where my mom's working 2 jobs, and it's me and my brother, making dinner, kind of around the house. She's there for when we go to sleep, but she's basically gone when we wake up. But now these kids, you would look at them and you would think they were all the greatest player in everything they do. They're the best model, they're the best celebrity, but they have all this knowledge that I wasn't given at that time.
Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but my answer to that question, Patrick, would be that what I've observed is that there's been great strides. We're saying that there's this enormous investment we're making in this person. So we we need to make sure we draft the right person and then we equip them. I mean, so when you think it from the standpoint of your company, of hiring talent, do you vet the talent? Do you then, what are you doing, is what I work with companies on, is to once you have hired them, what are you doing to onboard them? And to not just onboard them in terms of like, here's an apartment and here's how you're going to get your paycheck and here are the logistical things, but how are we going to bring you culturally into what we're trying to do as a team and organization? And that's where I think we're making strides. But I would say that many teams and organizations say, yes, we're getting smarter about how we train and the things we put in our bodies and financial education and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're only tip of the iceberg of realizing how we need to continue to develop the mindset and developing the thinking, not just can you shoot a basketball, but how do you think and play? I mean, Shane Battier, who sat in this chair last year, is a great example of that. And are we proactively shaping the culture on our team and our organization? Places that are starting to realize, oh no, we need to invest in that, are making better strides.
I would add to that, I mean, it wasn't like I was drafted and I was a terrible kid. I was 3.9, 3.8 GPA guy.
We'll have make record of that, please. It was 3.8.
I mean, I was a good kid, My mind was always like, in high school, I was always thinking positive, I would sit there, I would shake everybody's hand, I would talk to everybody that came up to me, and I would be respectful to everybody. And just going down that path, it wasn't, and to his term, I wish it was a little bit more investment on my part too, to keep in that great kid, keeping that positivity in my life instead of, as you've been saying, it's so easy just to do the other thing. It's going to be hard to stay that uplifting person when you're going through all this negative stuff, but it was really easy just to get a drink and hide and not talk to anybody.
Yeah, Ken.
Greg, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. We were talking for a couple minutes, and now I'm more convinced you need to write a book. You've got a story that people need to hear, and the fact that you're so candid about it, there are many athletes and others in life who need to hear your story. So please consider writing a book. So thank you for being honest and sharing what you shared. What's next for you? So Shane Battier was here last year. He talked about life in the context of quarters. So you're presumably in the first quarter of your life. What's next for you in the next quarter? How are you going to win? How are you going to impact people? What's next for you?
So I've thought about that and actually doing work with him, just figuring out what I wanted to do. And when I graduated this past May, thank you. Took 12 years, but I got it done. You know, when I thought, I looked at it as that way too, that, you know, I had the story to tell. I didn't know how it would do it. I didn't know who it would resonate with, but I knew that if I can help one person make a better decision than I made in their life, you know, have one person think positively in their life, you know, I think from my story, I felt like I would help somebody. And when I started, you know, looking at, okay, so how can I be positive? You know, how can I make a decision to best affect my family and to actually, in the long run, just bring happiness to myself? Things started popping up, you know, having a conversation with him about this. Next thing you know, he's like, hey, you wanna speak at my event? So, oh, really? Just by telling my story, you know, that might help somebody? You think my story's gonna help?
I looked at him and I said the same thing, that you need to share this story if you're courageous enough and willing to do that, but that people can benefit from this. And so one of the things we've been talking about is don't hide from what you have to share. And then, like, hey, this is an opportunity.
That's right.
Let's share it.
Great saying this is that sometimes you have to pull from your past to create your future. In fact, you have an opportunity to do that. We should talk after. I have another speaking engagement I'd like to talk to you about. Because I just think your words and your message needs to be heard. And again, just thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much, and we definitely gonna talk after.
Hi, Greg. My name is Gretchen. I was kind of very interested in how you described your Ohio State team earlier. I felt like you were very generous with everybody's.
This is a story I don't randomly tell people, but I'm gonna tell you because now I'm comfortable. So I remember that the first practice we had, it was a workout. I mean, I still had, my right hand was wrapped up when I first came here, and we had to take a shower. And I just wanted to break the ice. And Mike Conley, Mike, wash my back. You know, we're all in the shower, and they're like, these dudes is different. Mike's like, man, I ain't doing that. Mike, man, I can't wash my back, bro. But like, I did that just to kind of break the ice. Like, dude, like, we're here, man. We're all family, man. We all need to be comfortable with each other. And I remember actively doing that just to show, like, you know, you can laugh at us, you can make fun of us, or you can make fun of me for as long as you want to, but I'm here with you. And I wanted you to be able to make fun of me. I wanted you all to look at me, you know, like, this dude's crazy or this dude's weird, you know. I wanted you to be open enough to do that because that's how we was going to build that camaraderie together.
G, if I can respond to that, is because I bet if Coach Mata was sitting right here, he would say that there was intentionality every single day of what they were trying to do. Now, was it perfect? And does that mean we can just manipulate a culture? No. But that the coaching staff, the best teams in the world and the best coaches are the ones that say, all right, we have to identify what are the strengths of our players. So when you were describing Jamar Butler and how tough and what a defender and yet he was the point guard from before, but yet it was time. Mike Conley was a better point guard. And so we have to put him in a different position so he can be successful. And then the player, so from the coaching standpoint, like, we have to assess the talent and then begin to intentionally every day shape the culture what we want. And then to Greg's point, the players involved can either opt in or opt out. And when we begin to opt in on elite teams and in organizations, people start opting in, which means I'm able to allow myself into a new role. I'm willing to learn a new skill for the betterment of the team. And and the players help then shape that culture as well. That ecosystem of coaching intentionally and players then setting that culture Takes teams from average teams to elite teams.
I like that.
How about, we'll do one or two more.
I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, because I think in a world where it's easy to think that superstars have it easy, and in a world where we have comparison at a level that is dangerous to mental health, it's easy to compare your life to everybody else's. So you look at superstars and you think, oh, their life is so easy, and when we have our own trials and tribulations and struggles, stories like yours will make people keep going. So I think the more you share it, the easier it is for everybody to keep going. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
I have a question. Are you interested in coaching?
Do you have a position?
Yeah. No, I am interested in coaching. The one thing that's been kind of keeping me back from jumping in 100% is the time I want to spend with my daughter. I know a lot of coaches, they spend so much time teaching and raising all these other young men and women that they're kind of resented by their own kids if they have any. And so I kind of want to be able to be there with my daughter as she's growing up and being awesome.
So the answer is in 5 years you're going to be coaching an 8-year-old girls basketball team.
That could happen, actually.
Gio, last kind of thought here is, what about this thermostat culture's concept is compelling to you? Like this concept, why is this compelling?
At that time, when I was drafted, and I tell that story, that I didn't go hug my brother and my grandmother after I got drafted, because I was told what to do, and not to think that I couldn't set my own temperature. If I want to do something and this is how I want to move forward, then I need to do that. If I wanted to have a better relationship with my family, I should have went around and embraced all of my family and moved forward like I feel like they were all coming with me. I should have looked at, the doctors and been like, when you go in here, well, if it's that bad, let's wake up, let's have a real conversation. I should have said, Coach Brian is going to move out here with me. Well, talk to me about it. Why do you feel like he's going to come out here with me? I should have talked to the therapist and be like, I'm dealing with some demons. How can you help me be better? How can I think better to help myself? How can I open up to people and feel happy? Just be positive. Stop trying to hide from everything. But I need to do that. Like I said, I'm the business. I should have did that. And to set that culture, I like this because I read your book, not done yet, but chapter 6. I'm just reading and the work we've done to actually see it. I'm a list guy. To actually start putting into action, to actually intentionally do the things that's going to point me to the direction that I want to go in. That's what interests me about being here, and that's why I'm so happy I was able to be involved in this, to read that book, and actually it's inspiring me to be better, to want to put in motion things to better my life, to better my family's life, and just to be positive. When I articulated what I wanted in my life. I wanted to be happy. I wanted my family to be positive, and I wanted to just bring positivity in this life. I said it earlier. Everybody sees me, so I just want to put a smile on somebody's face. Telling my story. I just want somebody to be better, just one decision in their life to be better. And if I can do that, if I can intentionally do that, I think that represents thermostat culture.
The moment I met Greg from the very first conversation to now the many times we've spent together, what I've found him to be is a incredibly inclusive person. He is a gracious person. Every time we go anywhere, there are people all the time that are stopping us, even mid-conversation, like come up to your table and like interrupt you and not even say sorry and just say, can I get a picture with you? Will you sign this? And this man is gracious with everyone. His desire to be a positive influence on other people, he's a gentle giant. And I've told you this from day one, and I'm going to keep reminding you of this, is that your past is amazing. The success of your past, the part of your past that you are owning is not going to define you. The more interesting part of your story is what's next. I'm convinced of that. The most compelling part of your story is what's next. And I'm honored to call you a friend. Greg Oden.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Oh, and somebody put my socks on Instagram, and I guess my wife sent it to me. They're trending, so thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using. And share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to your organization, or you have a question or comment about this podcast, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we all are ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.